Thank you for staying with us. This is Carol Parisi with Champion News Talk Radio, and we are brought to you by championnews.net. Our founder, Jack Roser, and myself have Jan Morgan with us, and we were talking about our Second Amendment rights. And Jack, you were saying the Second Amendment is to protect us against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That's right.
Before the break, we were talking about other countries that have taken their folks' gun rights away.
We gave the numbers. 170 million people were annihilated by their own governments after being disarmed. See, so what that tells us is that gun control has never been about guns. It's about control. And when you look at gun control regulations in this country, it doesn't affect law-abiding citizens. I mean, it doesn't affect the criminals, the people who are committing these acts. It affects
Chicago. There's no place where they've been. This is the only state where you
gun
can't
control,
have concealed carry.
In the state, in the country.
Chicago is crazy about stopping all commerce in it. But
you have the highest
also has
crimes.
got the highest crime rate of any of the major American cities.
2,364 shooting incidents last year here in Chicago, 487 homicides, and 87% of those were gun-related. So your gun control regulations in Chicago are really working, aren't they, people?
Yep. Well, look at Otis McDonald. Thank God the Supreme Court ruled for Otis McDonald.
That you all could have guns in your homes at least.
He could have guns in his home. And this poor elderly black man lived in a neighborhood where he wanted to maintain his gun. They wanted him to not have his gun.
But yet, there are cases where guys like that and women sitting in wheelchairs have shot people that are trying to take
Jack,
what they
last year, 2.5 million people used guns to stop an attack. And in most of those cases, they never even had to pull the trigger. They simply had to brandish a weapon, and the attacker stopped. So, but you don't hear that on the news. All you hear about is this incident here or that incident there where a gun was used to murder somebody or kill somebody. But you don't hear about 2.5 million times. You don't hear that 90 million gun owners in this country with over 300 million guns killed no one last year.
Let me just tell you what happens with gun control. In recent years, they took all of the guns away from the people in Australia. Previously,
and look what happened to their crime rate.
Yeah, and you know, what the police call invasions of the home, where there is somebody there when it's invaded by the crooks. They call that a hot burglary. In the United States, where it's quite possible the homeowner's got a gun, only about 30% of the burglaries are hot. In England and in Australia, when they took the guns away, the hot burglaries ascended on up to 80 to 100%. In England, they'll go into your home and take your stuff, and you better not hurt them because you're going to get prosecuted. In Australia, it's the same way. All kinds of homicide and so forth increased by about 50% in Australia when they took guns away. They've turned it into Chicago, where only the crooks have guns.
Well, that's what's going to be the problem. My son, he's 15 years old, and we discussed some of these things over dinner, and he's like, Mom, how stupid. If people know you don't have a gun, criminals know you don't have a gun, that means they could get away with it. Everybody wants to have a gun and have a gun responsibly should be able to have it for their protection. Common sense, pretty basic, but we have an agenda to push.
There's actually one of the towns in Australia that the crime rate's gone up 300%. I mean, it might average for a 50% increase, but in one of the towns, a 300% increase in crime. You know what's funny, and I'm sure we've all seen this on television, where somebody decides to rob a bar, not realizing it's a cop bar. And so they come in and they pull out their guns. All of a sudden they hear click, 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 click. That's a perfect example of what a gun deterrent does.
Well, and the numbers, the statistics support what you just said as well. The cities that have and states that have the least restrictive gun control regulations have the lowest crime rates. And yet your highest, Washington and Chicago, two of your highest crime rates in the nation, and they're the highest, most strict gun control regulations. So it just shows you gun control does not work. It only helps the criminals. All the mass shootings that have happened in this country, they're in gun-free zones.
But
figure.
How do the liberals, the Democrats, the progressives, they are winning this argument? Barack Obama Obama praised children. Call your congressman. What's more important?
Because they make it an emotional issue rather than a statistical and logical issue. They always bring out, just like Barack brought out the children. He exploited those children because he knew he had to win on the emotional basis his push for gun control, because he can't win it with the numbers and the stats and the truth. The facts are on our side.
But you know what? I think liberals are moved by emotion and not by facts.
The thing that's in the news is all this gun control because of the killing of those children in a school.
Right.
And supposedly the possession of guns caused somebody to go in there and raise mayhem. How come that doesn't ever happen in a Catholic or a Lutheran or a Jewish or a private school, only in public schools? It's because there is no morality or Americanism taught about, and America started as a religious country. We were founded on principles that are in religious life of whatever good religion.
But now, see, as soon as you say something like that, there's probably going to be one in a church or a private school, because people that attend private Christian schools can lose it and go haywire and kill people just like anybody else can.
They could, but it doesn't happen because there is morality taught in the Christian schools, and the teachers imbue that in the students. And actually in the school out there, what happened was that the students oppressed this guy. He just wasn't a popular guy, a little bit maybe loose with his marbles.
Well, another reason you probably don't see it happening in Christian schools.
They allowed that kind of stuff to happen.
It's because they're armed.
It doesn't happen in you have morality in a private school.
Don't tell me that that wickedness hasn't grown. I remember back in the days when I was going to school, all we had to worry about was switchblades or maybe blackjacks, never any guns. So things have gotten a lot worse in America.
Okay, now we're talking about things that are going to reveal our age. But back when I was in school, the guys would have their rifles in the windows of their trucks. Their hunting rifles.
Texas,
and you just in Texas. In Texas, if you go to a convenience store now and you drop a glass and it starts to shatter, everybody in that store is going to be pulling a gun.